All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to take a concept many of us think we know, idolatry, and turn it completely on its head. What if I told you it has way less to do with ancient statues and a whole lot more to do with the systems we serve every single day?
Seriously, when I say idolatry, what's the first image that pops into your head? For a lot of us, right, it's probably that classic story of the golden calf, a bunch of people in the desert bowing down to a physical statue. It feels ancient, kind of primitive, something that doesn't really apply to us today. But what if that whole picture is missing the real point entirely? Because the truth is, when you actually dig into the original language, the real meaning of idolatry is, well, it's way more challenging and, frankly, a lot more personal than we might be comfortable with. So, first things first, even back in ancient times, it was pretty rare for anyone to actually believe that a statue was the deity itself. No, these images were almost always seen as symbols, as focal points for a bigger belief system. The statue wasn't the god, it was just a representation of the god's power or the system that it stood for. Okay, so here's where we really get to the heart of it. Because the real key, the thing that just unlocks this entire concept, is hidden right there in the original words. The Greek word for idolatry is idolatria, and it's a compound word, right? Two parts smashed together. The first part, eidolon, that's pretty straightforward. It means image or idol. But that second part, latria, ooh, that's where everything changes. And here is the twist. The word latreia had this incredible double meaning. On one hand, yes, it meant worship paid to gods. But, and this is huge, it also commonly meant hired labor or service rendered for pay. Just think about that for a second. That completely flips the script. Idolatry isn't just about bowing down in reverence. It's also about who or what you serve in exchange for some kind of payment or benefit. And we see this so brilliantly illustrated when Jesus is being tempted in the desert. He uses two totally different Greek words. He says, "You shall worship," and for that he uses proskuneo, which is all about bowing in reverence. But then he says, "You shall serve," and he uses latreo, the verb that comes from latreia. He's making a razor-sharp distinction here between spiritual worship and practical everyday service. Okay, so if idolatry can also mean service, especially service for hire, how in the world does that connect to our lives today? Well, the Bible makes a link that is pretty startling. It's right there in Colossians. It just says it, plain and simple. Covetousness is idolatry. And this isn't just about wanting your neighbor's fancy car. It goes deeper. It's about looking to man-made systems to give you security, to give you benefits, instead of looking to God. It's about who you're really serving to get what you think you need. You know, the Bible also uses this powerful metaphor of fornication to describe idolatry. And it makes perfect sense when you think about it. Just like fornication is a betrayal of a committed relationship, a covenant, idolatry is betraying our covenant with God. It's turning away from Him to serve these other man-made systems, all for our own gain. All right, so with this new understanding in mind, let's go back, let's revisit that classic, most famous story of idolatry, the golden calf. So if it wasn't just about a shiny statue, what was really going on there? What was the sin of the golden calf really about? What kind of service was being rendered? See, the golden calf was so much more than just a piece of art. It was a system. It was basically a central treasury, a kind of social safety net. When the people threw their gold in, they weren't just making a statue. They were making a covenant with this new system, not with God. They were handing over their allegiance, their service, to a human institution, and in return, they got a promise of security. That was the real idolatry. And this idea isn't just a one-off. The Apostle Paul talks about God's many and Lord's many. He's basically saying, look, there are tons of powers and systems out there in the world, and they all want your allegiance. They all demand your service. So what are these modern God's many? Well, they're the man-made systems that demand our allegiance. I mean, just think about it. We fill out applications, which are really just a form of prayer, and send them to these systems asking for benefits, right? Social Security, bank loans, government licenses. And in return for those benefits, we give them our loyalty, our compliance, our service. These systems are everywhere, represented by flags, corporate logos, and huge government buildings. Jesus pointed this out so clearly. He described how the systems of the world work. They're run by people who exercise authority over others, but they call themselves benefactors, the ones who give out benefits. And then he gave his followers a really clear command, but ye shall not be so. He was calling them to a completely different way of living, a completely different kind of service.
Okay, so if the way of the world is all about making these deals, these covenants, with man-made systems run by benefactors, what's the alternative? What does true service actually look like? Well, the alternative path is pretty radical. It starts with repentance, and that just means turning away from our dependency on these man-made systems. It means we start seeking guidance from a living spirit of truth, not just from a rule book or a set of regulations. It's about practicing real charity, real forgiveness, freely, not because some system compels us to. And ultimately, it's a call to serve God directly, through a life that's actually built on faith, hope, and love. And all of this, really, it brings us to one final, very challenging question that we have to ask ourselves. When you really look at your life, your habits, your dependencies, your allegiances, who or what do you truly serve? Look, if any of this resonated with you, if it made you think, do me a favor and hit that like button, subscribe, and maybe share this with someone you think needs to hear it. And if you really want to go deeper on these ideas, I cannot recommend the source article enough. The link for that is right down in the description. And one more thing, if you're looking to connect with other people who are on this same path, consider joining the Living Network. It's a community of seekers, people looking for a kingdom built on real faith, hope, and charity. That link is also in the description. Thanks so much for watching.